Welcome, fellow explorers of the human story, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something, well, fundamental. A paradox, really, that sits right at the foundation of our existence.
That sounds intriguing. What kind of paradox?
You see, even the most basic stories, the ones we think we know, like how humanity itself was created, they can hold surprising contradictions, really diverse interpretations.
Yeah. Across cultures, definitely.
Not just across cultures, but sometimes, and this is what gets me, even within a single sacred text. It's truly fascinating when you start peeling back those layers.
And that's precisely our mission for this deep dive, for you, our curious listener. We're embarking on an in-depth exploration. Specifically, we're looking at the very first chapter of Part 1 of Sir James George Frazer's huge work, Folklore in the Old Testament.
A classic.
Absolutely. This particular chapter, it's titled The Creation of Man. And it's going to take us on, well, quite a journey through ancient narratives, primitive beliefs, and just the myriad ways humanity has tried to explain its own beginning.
Think of this as your shortcut, maybe, to being genuinely well-informed on this specific topic. We've gone through Frazer's incredible stack of sources, historical, anthropological.
It's dense stuff, but fascinating.
To unearth the most interesting nuggets of knowledge. Those moments that make you go, haha, about this enduring quest to understand where we all came from. We'll share some surprising facts, maybe a little humor where Frazer finds it, and always connect it back to why this stuff still matters to you.
Sounds like a plan. Where do we start?
Let's dive right in where Frazer begins his analysis. The book of Genesis. Now, if you've ever read the Bible really closely, especially those opening chapters, you might have noticed something striking, something attentive readers can hardly miss. There seem to be two distinct accounts of human creation. Right there, back to back in chapters 1 and 2. It's quite a puzzle when you read them side by side.
It absolutely is. And the details really highlight how different these two narratives are. Take Genesis chapter 1. In that version, man is created on the sixth day, which puts humanity after the creation of fish, birds, all the land animals.
Right, the grand finale, sort of.
Exactly. And crucially, man is fashioned in God's own image, both male and female, simultaneously. So this account suggests, a final pinnacle act of creation, man and woman together, the last living beings made. And it implies this fundamental equality, a divine reflection in both sexes, right from the start.
Okay, that's clear. Very orderly, very grand. But then you flip the page to Genesis chapter 2, and it immediately feels different, almost contradictory. How does that second story unfold?
It's, a completely different sequence. In Genesis 2, God creates man first, forms him from the dust of the ground, breathes life into his nostrils.
So man before animals this time.
Man before anything else living, seemingly. Then, because man seems lonely, God creates the lower animals to provide companionship, and only then, last of all, is woman fashioned.
Almost like an afterthought, as Frazer puts it.
That's the impression you get, taken from man's rib while he sleeps. And what's also really notable in this second version, there's nothing explicitly said about man and woman being made in the image of God. The focus shifts entirely. It's about man's initial solitude and then woman's creation, which feels almost secondary.
Wow. So in one, the divine process seems to ascend, right, from sea creatures up to a man and woman together at the peak. But in the second, it feels like a descent almost. Starts with man, then animals, and then woman. Frazer even suggests it's like she marks the nadir of the divine workmanship. That's a really strong interpretation of the perceived value there.
It is a strong reading, and Frazer explains this flagrant contradiction, not as some deep theological mystery we need to unravel, but more as a straightforward result of how the text came together.
How so?
He argues it's simply because these accounts came from two different, originally separate documents. They were independent traditions. And later, an editor combined them into a single book, Genesis, but didn't always smooth out the rough edges or harmonize the discrepancies.
Right. So we're essentially hearing two distinct voices, maybe from different times or communities, woven together. That insight alone changes how you read it.
It really does. The account in Genesis 1, the one with the more abstract, God creating everything by divine decree, let there be light, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the cosmic scale.
That comes from what scholars generally call the priestly document. The thinking is it was likely composed by priestly writers during, or maybe even after, the Babylonian captivity. Their concept of God was much more remote, transcendent.
Okay. And the second story, Genesis 2.
That one, focusing on the hands-on creation of man, the garden, the animals, that's derived from what's known as the Jehovistic document. And this was written much earlier, probably several hundred years before the priestly one, maybe 9th or 8th century BCE.
Wow, centuries apart.
Yeah. And the difference in the portrayal of God is profound. The Jehovistic writer sees God in a very concrete way, almost anthropomorphic. This God acts and speaks like a human.
Like getting his hands dirty, literally.
Exactly. Modeling a person out of clay, planting a garden, taking a walk in the cool of the day, calling out to Adam and Eve, even making them clothes out of skins when they realize they're naked.
Yeah.
It's very immediate, very personal.
It's like comparing two completely different artistic styles, isn't it? You've got that, Frazer calls it charming naivety, almost the gaiety of the earlier Jehovistic story.
It was quite picturesque.
Set against the high seriousness, the solemnity of the later priestly one. And Frazer points out something else in that Jehovistic account, something a bit more sobering.
Yes, there's a darker undercurrent.
He mentions a vein of sadness and pessimism, and maybe more controversially, what he sees as a deep contempt for woman. Her creation story, they're late, sort of irregular, not very dignified.
From a piece of her lord and master, as Frazer puts it.
Right, after all the animals were made in a more orderly way. He argues it signals a pretty low opinion of her nature. And then, of course, in the story that follows, she gets blamed for, well, everything bad that happens. It's a remarkable cultural insight embedded right there.
It is. And this is precisely why that earlier Jehovistic narrative, despite maybe seeming simpler or more naive, is actually, as Frazer says, richer in folklore.
Ah, okay.
It keeps features that have this primitive simplicity, things the later priestly writer carefully effaced or removed, and that makes it a perfect starting point for comparative mythology. It gives us more hooks, more points of comparison with all those childlike stories, as Frazer terms them, that people in countless ages and countries have used to try and explain the huge mystery of how life began on Earth.
So it's a window, really, into how humans everywhere grapple with these big origin questions.
Exactly. A window into almost universal human attempts to understand where we come from.
Okay, let's unpack this then. What do these childlike stories from all over the globe tell us about human nature, about our earliest attempts to figure ourselves out? Where else do we see these kinds of echoes?
Well, one of the most widespread themes, and it echoes that Jehovistic account directly, is the belief that the first man was molded from clay or earth.
Right, formed man of the dust of the ground.
Precisely. And you mentioned earlier, for the Hebrews, this connection was natural. In their language, ground Adama is just the feminine form of man, Adam. It's baked into the language.
That's fascinating in itself, but you're saying this isn't just a Hebrew idea, it's much broader.
Oh, much broader. It's a deeply ingrained human concept, almost a universal intuition, it seems. We find parallels in the ancient Near East that are contemporary with or even predate these biblical narratives.
Like where?
Well, in Babylonian tradition, for instance, there's an account from Berosus where the god Bel cuts off his own head, and the other gods mix his blood with earth to fashion wise men. So there you have divine essence, blood, mixed directly with earth.
Yeah, okay. Bit more graphic.
A bit. And in Egyptian mythology, you have Khnummu, the father of the gods, often depicted as a potter, molding men out of clay on his potter's wheel, a very vivid image of divine craftsmanship.
And the Greeks, they had Prometheus, didn't they? Molding men from clay.
Yes, exactly. The Greek legend says Prometheus molded the first men from clay at a place called Panopeus in Phocis. And what's really striking about this legend, Frazer highlights this, is a detail from a traveler centuries later in the 2nd century CE.
What did they find?
This traveler observed 2 large boulders near Panopeus. They still in the color of clay, and incredibly he reported they smelt strongly of human flesh.
No way, seriously.
That's the account. And Frazer himself actually visited this forlorn little glen, as he calls it. He found this reddish crumbling earth and mused that maybe this was the leftover clay Prometheus used. He describes the scene solitary, ruins on the hill above, and it reinforces the sense of, how fleeting human existence is compared to the permanence of nature. It's a powerful image.
That's incredible. The smell, it makes it so tangible. And you mentioned reddish earth. The idea of red clay seems to pop up a lot too, right? Is there a reason for that?
It does appear frequently. Many stories explicitly mention red clay, and the likely reason is to explain the redness of human blood. It's a simple visual connection.
Makes sense.
Frazer even conjectures that maybe the Jehovistic writer subtly implied red earth for Adam, because you have the Hebrew wordplay, Adam for man, Adama for ground, and Adam for red.
Ah, connecting all three.
Potentially. And he notes that the soil in Palestine, even today, is often a dark reddish brown, especially when it's freshly turned. So you can see how people might visibly connect Adam the man, to the red earth he supposedly came from. It's right there in their environment.
So it's not just ancient history, it's tied to the physical landscape people lived in. That's amazing. And these man from clay myths, they aren't just confined to the ancient Near East or Greece, are they? You said they're truly global.
Oh, absolutely global. They resonate across indigenous cultures worldwide. Let's take the Australian Aborigines from the Melbourne area, for example.
Okay.
Their creator figure, 𝗵𝗄𝗆, reportedly used sheets of bark and clay. He carefully shaped human forms, adding details like eucalyptus hair. Then, apparently filled with joy, he danced around them before blowing breath hard into their mouths, noses, and navels. And boom, they came to life as full-grown men.
Blowing breath. That sounds familiar, too.
It does echo Genesis 2, doesn't it? Then, in New Zealand, the Maoris tell of a god sometimes called 𝗼𝗍𝗄𝗄, sometimes Tain, or just Tiki, who needed red riverside clay, mixing it with his own blood into his likeness.
His own blood.
Yes. And then he animated it by breathing into its mouth and nostrils. This caused the clay figure to sneeze and come to life. And for the Maoris, the sneeze is still seen as a sign of divine power, a reminder of that creation. People even say, "Sneeze, O spirit of life," when someone sneezes.
That sneeze detail is fantastic, so specific and memorable. Do we see other little remnants like that in myths?
Sometimes, yes. And then we have Polynesian variations, some with really striking parallels to Genesis 2 again. In Tahiti, a common tradition was that Taroa, their chief god, made man from red earth. Then he put the man to sleep, took out one of his bones, an 𝗍𝗰, and made woman. Yes, and 𝗍𝗰 in Tahitian also means bone. The missionary who recorded this was initially suspicious, thought it must be European influence.
Understand.
But Frazer notes its wide diffusion across Polynesia, including Fakaofo, or 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏 Island, where the story specifies the first man took a rib out of his left side to form woman. And again, she was called 𝗍𝗰, which sounds remarkably like Eve. It really raises doubts about automatic borrowing, suggesting maybe an independent tradition.
So even with those really close linguistic parallels, it might not be a borrowed story. It could be an independent human intuition about origins.
That's a powerful thought. Suggests a common human way of thinking, maybe.
It does suggest that possibility. However, some parallels are so close, they definitely raise suspicion. The Karens of Burma, for instance.
What's their story?
They say God formed man from earth and woman from his rib, and bestowed life by breathing a particle of his life into their nostrils. It's extremely close to the biblical account.
Yeah, that's very specific.
And this suspicion gets stronger because other Karen traditions trace their genealogy directly back to Adam and even mention the Tower of Babel. Frazer concludes missionary influence is highly probable there, a suspicion bordering on certainty. Okay, that makes sense. What about other places? The Pacific.
Loads of examples. In Nui, or Netherland Island, the god 𝗍𝗆𝗆 molded man and woman from earth, brought them to life. The 𝗪𝗆 Islanders have a fascinating one. A brother and sister made men from clay, but mixed it with the blood of different animals.
Why animal blood?
To determine human character. Rat's blood made thieves, serpent's blood made sneaks, but cock's blood made brave men. It's like an early form of genetic determinism built right into creation.
That's wild. So your temperament came from the animal blood used to make you.
That was the idea. Then in Melanesia, in Mota, the figure 𝗏 molded men from red clay. They were initially shaped like pigs, apparently, but he made them walk upright. The first woman, though, he made from supple twigs and animated her with just a smile.
Twigs, not clay.
Not for the woman, in that version. And in Molecula, another Melanesian island, a being named Bokor needed the first man and woman from clay. It's just striking how many stories tie our origins directly to the soil, the earth, the natural materials right there.
It really does seem tied to their immediate environment. What about the Indian archipelago? Any unique twists there?
Oh, yes. In the Key Islands, ancestors were fashioned from clay by the supreme god 𝗪𝗪, who breathed life into them. The Tarajas of Celebes have a story where Lai and Adara assigned a being called 𝗍𝗆𝗵𝗆𝗆 to make models of man and woman.
Models first, like prototypes.
Exactly, first from stone or wood, but they were criticized by the god's calves, not round enough, too pot-bellied. The third pair, made presumably from clay, was finally approved after a slight change, transferring a portion of the male to the female.
Ah, explaining anatomical differences.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they drew life from the common wind, not some eternal divine breath, which explains why our breath just returns to the wind when we die. Very pragmatic.
That is practical. They're building explanations for everyday observations right into the myth.
Precisely. Over in Minahasa, also Celebes, Wayland Wonko and Wongi made clay images that could move but not speak. 𝗤𝗲𝗵 apparently used ginger, blue on their skulls and ears to give them speech, their names, Adam and Eva, again, hinting at outside influence.
Ginger for speech, that's a new one. Borneo.
The 𝗣𝗿𝗄𝗃 of Sakharin say 2 birds made man from damp earth, using red gum from a tree for blood. They call them 𝗤𝗏𝗵𝗃, molded earth. The sea 𝗣𝗿𝗄𝗃 believe a god, 𝗲𝗏𝗵𝗃, hammers men into shape from clay like a smith.
Hammers them.
Yes, they say the clink of 𝗲𝗏𝗵𝗃's hammer can be heard at night. He apparently failed trying stone and iron first, but succeeded with clay. And get this, children choose their sex before being finished, asking for either a sword for male or cotton and a spinning wheel for female.
Choosing their sex? That's quite progressive for an ancient myth.
It's a fascinating detail. Then the Nias people of Sumatra have this long poem. Their supreme god 𝗤𝗏𝗆 sees his reflection in a spring, takes a handful of earth, fashions a figure called 𝗤𝗏𝗆, like their ancestral statues. He weighs him, puts wind on his lips for speech.
Did 𝗤𝗏𝗆 survive?
No, he died without offspring. But from his body grew important things. Trees, one from his heart that humans descended from, another that yielded gold. The sun and moon came from his eyes. So a sort of primordial being whose body becomes the world.
That's incredible. Origins of humanity, nature, even wealth, all from one source. What about the Philippines?
The Bilan people of Mindanao tell of Melu, a huge white being who made earth from his own. Well, scurf, dead skin.
Seriously?
And from the leftover scurf, he made 2 smaller beings, the first humans. But there was an argument with another being, 𝗤𝗏𝗵𝗃, about where the noses should go. They got put on upside down initially.
Upside down noses.
Apparently. Melu had to fix them later, and the story says he left a print on the bridge of our noses where his fingers pressed. Another Bilan version has 4 beings trying wax. First it melted, then dirt. Same issue with the noses put on upside down, needing a hasty fix, leaving the creator's fingerprint.
An explanation for the shape of our nose bridge. That's brilliant.
Isn't it? The 𝗏𝗏𝗵s, also Mindanao, say their god 𝗣𝗿𝗆 made sea and land, then took 2 lumps of earth, spat on them, and created man, 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗃, and woman, 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗃.
Spitting. Another way to impart life force, perhaps. India.
The Kumis people say God made man and woman from clay, but a huge snake kept eating them every night.
Oh, dear.
So God created a dog to guard them. The dog barked and scared the snake away. This explains why dogs howl when someone dies. They see the snake coming for the soul, trying to warn it off. But maybe God sleeps too heavily now, or the snake is bolder, so people still die.
Wow, so the dog is humanity's original protector. I like that.
The 𝗏𝗄𝑠 and 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗃 have similar stories. A dog, or among the Mundas, a spider weaving a web protecting the vulnerable clay figures from being destroyed, often by fiery horses or evil spirits before they could be brought to life.
So animals aren't just created for man, as in Genesis 2, but are sometimes crucial for man's very survival in these myths. That's a significant difference.
Exactly. A fundamental partnership, almost. The Santals of Bengal have a really elaborate one. Thakurju orders Melon Booty to make humans from froth or clay. A day horse tramples them. She tries again, but accidentally uses bird's life instead of human life, so they just fly away as birds, Has and Hasin.
Okay, so failed attempts. Then what?
Then there's this whole process involving a fish, a crab, an earthworm, and a tortoise to make the land firm. Then Has and Hasin, the birds, lay eggs. A demon eats some, but Thakurju sends a guardian, Chahir Era, and from the remaining eggs hatch the first humans, 𝗵𝗆 and 𝗵𝗆.
Whoa, so they went from clay to birds to humans via eggs.
Pretty much. Frazer notes it combines the principles of creation and evolution in a way, from inanimate matter to animal life to human life.
That's a really sophisticated narrative, blending different origin ideas.
It is. Moving to Africa, the 𝗲𝗏𝗵s, a Finnish people in Russia, have a story where God makes man from clay, leaves a dog to guard. The devil comes along, bribes the dog with a fur coat.
Oh no, not the dog.
And spits all over the clay body, making it foul. God, disgusted, turns the body inside out. Which, the story explains, is why our insides are dirty. And God cursed the dog for its betrayal.
Goodness, that's quite a tale. A bit grim.
A very cynical take, yes. But then you have the Shillaks of the White Nile with a really ingenious explanation for race.
Oh, how did they explain it?
Their creator, Juke, used different colors of earth to mold different peoples. Pure white earth for white people, Nile mud for reddish-brown people, black earth for black people. Simple, elegant, tied to their environment.
That is clever, addressing diversity directly.
And he added body parts with purpose. Long legs like a flamingo for wading, arms for growing food, eyes to see the food, mouth to eat it, tongue to sing and talk, ears to hear. Very practical.
I like that. Function-driven design. Any others from Africa?
The fans of West Africa say God made man from clay, but first in the shape of a lizard. Put it in a pool for 7 days, and then a man emerged. The Ewì people of Togoland believe God still makes people from clay. Good people from good clay, bad people from bad clay. Leftover water makes bad people, apparently. And their first man and woman just laughed when they saw each other.
Just laughed. That's a nice touch. Okay, what about the Americas? Is the clay motif strong there, too?
Very strong. The Eskimo of Point Barrow, Alaska, a spirit named 𝗲𝗍𝗆, made a clay man, dried him, breathed life into him. Another Eskimo story says the raven made the first woman from clay for the lonely first man, using watergrass for hair, flapping his wings to animate her.
Raven the creator pops up a lot in North American myths, doesn't he?
He certainly does. Down in California, the 𝗲𝗵𝗵 Indians said their creator 𝗤𝗖𝗔𝗏 made male and female from clay on lake banks. The Maidu Indians believed 𝗲𝗏𝗍𝗏 came down from the sky, mixed dark red earth and water, made a man and woman. They were described as very white, with pink eyes and black hair, and he specifically finished their hands like his own, rejecting the coyote's paw-like suggestion so they could climb trees if chased by bears.
Huh. Practical again. Avoiding bears. It makes you wonder how much these stories reflect the real dangers and environment of the people telling them.
They absolutely seem to. The Diegueño Indians, also California, have a story where their creator 𝗲𝗵𝗵 made land from red ants, then the moon and sun from 3 clays. Then, like colored clay for man, and get this, a rib from man for woman. Her name, Sanyaso, first woman. They believe humans came from this pair and dance in the afterlife at 𝗲𝗏𝗵 Mountain, their creation place.
A rib again. And a specific place linked to creation. Arizona.
The Hopi. 2 goddesses, the 𝗲𝗰𝗶𝗵, made dry land. The sun saw it was empty. So the goddesses made a wren from clay first, sang over it, brought it to life as a scout, then other animals. Finally, the Eastern goddess molded a woman, then a man, from clay, bringing them to life just like the animals.
So animals first, then humans, another variation.
Right. The Pina, also Arizona, say their creator took clay, mixed it with his own sweat, kneaded it, blew on it man and woman.
Sweat this time. Another bodily fluid imparting life. Louisiana.
A Natchez priest told the French writer 𝗵𝗵𝗵 that their god kneaded potter's clay into a little man, blew life into him. The priest didn't know how woman was made, thought maybe the same way, but 𝗵𝗵𝗵 apparently corrected him with the Eve and rib story from Genesis.
Oh, interesting interaction there between cultures and beliefs. Mexico.
The Michoacans said their god 𝗬𝗏𝗄𝗆 tried clay first for man and woman, but they dissolved in water.
Whoops.
Then he tried ashes, that failed too. Finally, he used metal. That worked, and they became the ancestors.
Metal. That's unique. Reflects maybe a later metalworking culture.
That's a great point. It really could highlight how available materials and technologies shape these narratives. In South America, a Peruvian legend from Cusco says after a great flood, the creator at Tiahuanaco remade humanity. He made one of each nation from clay, painted their traditional clothes on the figures, gave each group language, songs, seeds, then gave them life and soul, told them to go under the earth and emerge in their assigned homelands.
Wow, explaining the diversity of nations and cultures right from the start.
And the Lengua people of Paraguay believed their creator, who was a beetle.
A beetle.
Yep, a beetle.
Mm-hmm.
Formed man and woman from clay.
Mm-hmm.
But initially they were joined together like the Siamese twins. They begged the beetle to separate them so they could have children, and he eventually did.
Joined together. Another fascinating detail. So looking back at all these, this man from clay idea is just everywhere. It really does suggest some kind of deep-seated human intuition about being connected to the earth, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Frazer reiterates how this reflects that fundamental theory of creation. Humanity fashioned by a great craftsman, a god, a hero, using the materials of the world. The earth itself is the raw stuff of our being, shaped by some powerful, often human-like creative force.
Okay, but hold on, because here's where it gets really interesting, as Frazer points out. While that man from clay story is incredibly common, some ancient cultures had a totally different take. They pictured us evolving almost, coming from the wild. How did they imagine our journey?
Right. This is where we shift gears significantly. Frazer discusses this very different view which primitive man has taken of his own origin. He calls it the theory of evolution. Many cultures, particularly those Frazer terms savage, seem to reject the idea of a static, instant creation. Instead, they believe humans developed from lower forms, animals, sometimes even plants.
Wait, evolution, like actual transformation of species, before Darwin?
In a rudimentary sense, yes. It's particularly common among what anthropologists call totemic tribes. These are groups who identify a special ancestral link to a particular animal, plant, or natural object, their totem.
That's mind-blowing. It completely challenges our usual timeline of ideas. So they were thinking about species change way back then.
In their own way, yes. The examples from American indigenous peoples are incredibly vivid. Some Californian groups, where coyote is a major figure in mythology.
Right, Coyote the trickster creator.
They believe they actually descended from coyotes, that their ancestors originally walked on all fours, then gradually developed human parts, one finger, then two, one eye, then two, until they were fully human. They even lamented the loss of their tails, blaming it on sitting upright.
That's uncanny. It sounds like they were observing anatomical similarities and trying to logically piece together a transformation, almost like early naturalists.
Precisely. Or consider the turtle clan of the Iroquois. They believed they descended from actual mud turtles that shed their shells and became human when their pool dried up. The crawfish clan of the Choctaw traced their line back to crawfish living underground.
Crawfish?
Yep. The story goes, the Choctaws smoked them out of their holes, taught them human language, taught them to walk upright, remove their claws and feelers, and adopted them into the tribe. The rest, they say, are still underground as crawfish.
What incredible stories, connecting them so directly to specific animals?
And it shaped their worldview. The Osays believed they came from a male snail and a female beaver. They initially revered the beaver as a relative and wouldn't hunt it. But then, Frazer notes, economic temptation from white traders wanting furs led them to break the taboo.
Colonization impacting ancient beliefs?
Sadly, yes. The Ottawa had a carp clan from carp eggs. The Ojibwe crane clan from cranes, transformed by the Great Spirit. The Omaha buffalo clans believed they were originally buffaloes living underwater. When a member died, they'd wrap them in a buffalo skin and tell them to go back to their ancestors. Do not face this way again.
Wow. So death was a return to that animal state.
In that belief system, yes. The Haida people of the Queen Charlotte Islands. They believe the raven married a cockle shell, which gave birth to a girl, whom Raven then married, and their offspring were the Haida people. They gravely affirmed and steadfastly maintained their descent from crows, wouldn't kill them, and used black paint to remember their crow ancestors.
So it wasn't just a story, it was a fundamental part of their identity and rules.
Absolutely. The Delaware tribe called the rattlesnake grandfather. They initially refused to kill them, believing in this deep connection, seeing all animated nature as a great whole. That respect diminished under European influence. Even in Peru, some groups boasted descent from pumas or condors, wearing their skins or wings at festivals, showing this powerful symbolic link.
It's such a profoundly different relationship with the animal world compared to the dominion over the creatures idea you sometimes get elsewhere.
Yeah.
Here, humanity is part of the animal kingdom. It feels much more integrated.
A truly integrated worldview. The line between human and animal is much more fluid. This extends beyond the Americas. Look at Africa and Madagascar.
Okay.
The 𝗲𝗏𝗃 people of East Africa regard the hyena as an ancestor. If a hyena dies, it's mourned with bigger ceremonies than for a chief, uniting all the tribes. In Madagascar, some families claim descent from the 𝗲𝗏𝗃 lemur, burying dead ones solemnly. If someone harms one, they're accused of killing a grandfather.
Goodness. Serious business.
Very. Many 𝗵𝗏𝗃 people believe the 𝗲𝗏 lemur embodies their forefathers, fearing sickness or death if they injure one. Some tribes even consider crocodiles their brothers. If a croc eats someone, the specific crocodile culprit is formally tried, sentenced to death, and executed. Then it's mourned and buried like a human relative.
Trying and executing a crocodile, that shows an incredible level of identification.
It really does. And the paths of evolution get even more diverse. West Africa, Chai-speaking tribes. The horse mackerel family traces descent from a female fish who married a human ancestor, lived as a woman, but then returned to the sea with her child after being insulted about her fish origins. They still don't eat horse mackerel.
A fish ancestor. Okay. Borneo again.
The Landayaks won't eat the putin fish, believing it's a relation. Their story involves a fish transforming into a beautiful girl who married into the tribe, had a daughter, but returned to the water after being struck. The Kayans believe the first man and woman were born directly from a tree that was fertilized by a creeper vine.
From a tree. Straight from plants.
Straight from plants. They were initially incomplete, no legs, entrails exposed, but they married and became the ancestors anyway. That's direct evolution from the vegetable kingdom.
Plants, that really pushes the boundaries. It shows how widely they cast the net for potential origins, even to the botanical world.
It really does. In Sumatra, some Mandailing clans claim descent from tigers. They offer betel nut to dead tigers, protect their tracks. They believe tigers won't attack their human kin. The 𝗵𝗏𝗵 people have various animal totems, buffaloes, goats, apes, tigers believed to be ancestors, and they believe souls can transmigrate into these animals after death.
So, reincarnation linked to ancestral animals.
Seems so. In Celebes, some Minahasa people believe they descend from apes still living in the local woods. They used to send offerings to these ape ancestors. Now they just tolerate the apes stealing their food and clothes, fearing sickness if they try to stop them.
Better to lose your lunch than anger your ape ancestors.
Apparently. In the Moluccas, different villages claim descent from trees or animals like pigs, octopuses, crocodiles, sharks, eels. This leads to direct taboos. Don't burn the wood of your ancestral tree, don't eat your ancestral animal, or you'll get sick.
So these beliefs translate into very real, practical rules for daily life. It's not just abstract folklore, it's a lived code of conduct.
Absolutely. It governs behavior. New Guinea offers more examples. The 𝗵𝗏𝗵 trace descend from totems, like sea fish or parrots. Eating the totem brings doom or illness. One family comes from a sow who apparently farrowed babies and little pigs at the same birth.
Human babies and piglets. Wow.
That's the story. Natives of Astrolabe Bay descend from a crocodile born as a twin with a human girl. They don't eat crocodiles.
Okay, the Merindonese people of Dutch New Guinea had those complex clay stories, but do they have evolutionary ones too?
They do, and they are fascinatingly complex, often acted out in initiation rites. One involves a crane picking fish from the sea, throwing them on the beach where clay covers them. They warm by a fire. Bursting bamboos shape them into humans, opening their eyes and mouths. A bamboo knife cuts their webbed fingers, which turn into leeches. A loud pop from bamboo prompts the first human speech.
That sounds incredibly ritualistic, like a performance of creation.
It is. Another Merindonese version starts with spirits who own a dog and a bird. The dog digs a hole, and the first human pair emerges from underground. They are animalistic, live like beasts. The bird rescues them from drowning. Seeing the spirits' fire and hearing loud bamboo cracks triggers their first cry of fear and wonder, unloosing their tongues for speech. That hole becomes a sacred pool.
Emerging from underground,
Yeah.
another common theme.
Yes, and these origin stories are central to their initiation mysteries, the Mayo rites, meant to ensure fertility. Novices are ritually treated like the ancestors picked up like fish, coated in clay, have clay put in their mouths, then taught the basics of life, as if they are newborns or newly emerged ancestors themselves.
A complete reenactment to pass on the origin and ensure continuity. Powerful stuff. What about further out in the Pacific?
On Ponape, families link themselves to specific animals, especially fish, calling them mothers. These animals are sacred, cannot be injured. Breaking the taboo risks blindness. The Samoans had a story where the first two men developed from grubs that grew in rotting convolvulus vines. Yes, maggots, basically. Divine beings found these grubs and transformed them into men. But then one man died. So the god Tangaloa changed the dead man into a woman and revived her, allowing the species to continue. Frazer notes this combines evolution and creation, from grub to man by evolution, then man to woman by divine act.
It's like a multi-stage process, not just one event, but a progression. That feels surprisingly modern for such an ancient idea, a more fluid understanding of life's forms.
It does. And Australia, especially Central Australia, is rich in these evolutionary-style narratives. Some groups in Western Australia believed ancestors were swans or ducks before becoming human. The Jerry tribes say their totems crow, emu, etc., emerged from the earth at Paragundi Lake as imperfectly formed beings. They basked in the sun until they could stand up as humans.
Basking in the sun to finish developing. Interesting.
Another Dieri legend has a being named Paralina finding incomplete beings and basically finishing them, smoothing their bodies, stretching limbs, slitting fingers and toes apart, forming noses and mouths, blowing in their ears. Yet another Dieri tradition says the Muramura, ancestral beings, made men from small black lizards by dividing their feet, making a nose with a finger, and cutting off their tails so they could walk upright.
Lizards into men. It's clearly trying to bridge that gap between animal forms and human forms.
Exactly. And perhaps the most detailed comes from the Arunta, also Central Australia. They tell of two beings, the 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗵𝗃, meaning out of nothing or self-existing, who came from the sky. They found creatures called 𝗍𝗶𝗆𝗄𝗏.
𝗍𝗶𝗆𝗄𝗏.
Yeah, basically rudimentary humans, incomplete beings, limbs and organs indistinct, sort of doubled up in a round mass. The 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗃, using stone knives, literally carved them into shape. Released the arms, fashioned hands and fingers, legs, feet, toes, molded a nose, bored nostrils, cut a mouth, slit the eyelids open.
Like sculptors finishing a rough form.
Precisely. Frazer interprets these and 𝗵𝗺𝗶𝗀𝗁 creatures as representing intermediate stages in the transformation of animals and plants into humans. He calls it a crude attempt to describe the origin of human beings out of non-human creatures. After finishing their work, the 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁 turned into little lizards themselves.
Wow. So Frazer's work really pulls together these two huge, seemingly opposite threads in how ancient peoples thought about origins. Creation by a maker and evolution from other forms. It's amazing how different cultures, oceans apart, wrestled with the same basic questions.
It's truly remarkable, and Frazer really synthesizes it well. He observes that these countless examples illustrate two fundamentally different views. One, the theory of creation, where humans were fashioned, fully formed, by a great artificer, a god or hero.
Right, the potter and the clay model.
And two, the theory of evolution, where humanity emerged, developed, evolved from lower forms of animal or even plant life through some kind of natural process.
And what's really stunning, as you said, is that these aren't just ideas found among so-called primitive tribes. They have echoes in early sophisticated philosophical thinking too, right? It kind of blurs our neat lines between ancient myth and early science or philosophy.
Absolutely. Frazer points out clear parallels in Greek philosophy. 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁, for instance, a major pre-Socratic philosopher, he proposed a kind of crude evolutionary hypothesis.
What was his idea?
He imagined shapeless lumps of earth and water thrown up by volcanic fires, initially developing into monstrous hybrids, bulls with human heads, humans with bull heads, all sorts of combinations. Eventually, these non-viable forms died out, and the existing species, the ones that worked, survived and evolved.
That sounds astonishingly like natural selection in a very basic form.
It has elements of it, yes. And another philosopher, Anaximander, even thought that humans originally developed from fishes. So Frazer finds it fascinating how the savage Arunta of Central Australia and the civilized Greek of Sicily could independently develop such similar, if grotesque, anticipations of the modern theory of evolution.
It really shows these are fundamental ways humans try to make sense of the world and our place in it. These ancient gropings of the human mind in the dark abysses of the past, as Frazer puts it.
Beautifully phrased. They show how universal this quest for understanding our origins really is.
It's incredible. Thousands of years, across continents, people pondering the same deep questions, sometimes arriving at uncannily similar frameworks, whether creation or transformation. It makes you realize how deeply human this curiosity is.
And Frazer's final, profound observation really resonates. He says that, roughly speaking, these two theories still divide the civilized world between them.
Creation versus evolution, still the big debate.
Pretty much. Whether you lean towards a creationist view or an evolutionary one, each side, Frazer notes, can point to a large consensus of opinion throughout history and across cultures. He even provocatively suggests that if truth were decided simply by weighing these consensuses, putting Genesis in one scale and Darwin's Origin of Species in the other, he thought back when he was writing, maybe the balance hung very even between creation and evolution. His point isn't really about choosing a winner, though. It's about recognizing this universal, enduring human need to explain our existence, using the frameworks available to us.
What an incredible journey through just one chapter of Frazer's work. We've covered so much ground, from those contrasting Genesis accounts to the almost universal man from clay motif found everywhere from Babylon to Borneo to the Americas.
With all those amazing local details, red clay, divine breath, animal blood, even upside-down noses.
Right, and then shifting to those equally widespread, if less familiar to us perhaps, theories of primitive evolution. Humans descending from animals, plants, even grubs, often linked to totemism and shaping entire worldviews and social rules.
From coyotes and turtles to hyenas and fish and even trees.
Frazer's deep dive really illuminates our shared intellectual and spiritual heritage, doesn't it? It reveals these common threads in humanity's great quest for understanding. It shows us that asking, where did we come from? It's just fundamentally human. It cuts across all times and cultures.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a final, maybe provocative thought for you, our listener, to mull over. Considering this sheer, mind-boggling variety of ways humanity has conceived its origins, from a divine potter carefully molding us, to a slow, messy transformation from lizards or fish or even pond scum, what does this variety tell you? What does it say about the enduring power of storytelling, about the fundamental human impulse to ask, where did we come from? Is the search for an origin story really about finding the definitive answer? Or is it possible that the real meaning lies in the very act of questioning, of wondering, of telling the stories themselves?
Something to think about. Keep digging deeper into the stories that make us human. We'll see you on the next deep dive.